The man who kept a journal of every day with Barbra Streisand is now writing the hardest entries yet. James Brolin, who proposed 3 times before she said yes, recently told producers he can't commit right now. Their separate bank accounts are finally merging as medical bills mount. After their 25th anniversary last year, the couple faces their biggest challenge. Hollywood insiders reveal Brolin refused a $2 million role just to stay home. His next chapter might be his most heartbreaking. James Brolin was born as Craig Kenneth Brolin on July 18, 1940, during a scorching heat wave in Los Angeles. It was 103 degrees the day he arrived. His father, Henry, a successful contractor, barely made it to the hospital. He got there just 12 minutes before Craig was born. Henry ran his house like a strict machine. From the age of 4, Craig had daily chores and weekly reviews of his behavior. His mother, Helen, once worked as a film extra, but she never told Craig. She didn't want him to get distracted from school. Craig was a quiet child, partly because of severe asthma. At age 7, he spent 45 days in the hospital. Still, he had a sharp mind. At 9, he took apart and rebuilt his father's watch. Teachers noticed how good he was with mechanics, but nobody could guess how obsessed he would become with James Dean. At 15, Craig saw East of Eden, and it changed everything. Every Saturday for 6 months, he secretly rode his bike 17 miles to Griffith Park. There alone, he copied Dean's walk, his voice, his look. In his room, he had 73 James Dean clippings behind a poster. He saved over $200 from delivering papers and bought an 8mm camera. He filmed 24 silent reenactments with neighborhood kids. When Dean died in a car crash, Craig didn't speak for 11 days. His drama teacher found one of his short films and sent it to UCLA without telling him. It won an honorable mention from Nicholas Ray, the same man who directed Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. That moment sealed Craig's dream to act, even though his shyness made him throw up before every audition. In 1960, he was told to change his name. The studio said Brolin sounded too German. They even had stats. Short names with hard sounds got better recognition. Craig didn't want to do it. He had 7 meetings arguing against it. But the studio won. They gave him James because of his James Dean obsession. His dad didn't speak to him for over a year. His mom mailed his new headshot to relatives trying to explain. For 214 nights, James couldn't sleep without pills. And after all that, the studio told him he was acting too much like Dean, the very thing they'd asked for. In 1966, Brolin got small roles on a Batman TV show. First, he played a bank teller. The director liked how he dropped the money bags, so he got more screen time. Months later, another director cast him as the eraser, not realizing he'd been on the show before. He even cracked 3 ribs doing his own stunts. Then Adam West picked him for a 3rd role. No one on set noticed he had already been cast twice. He was homeless at the time, living in a 1958 Chevy, and using the gym showers at Fox Studios. In 1967, everything fell apart. He starred in The Cape Town Affair, a film he warned would flop. He sent memos about the bad script and cultural issues. No one listened. The film tanked. He was fired while visiting his mom in the hospital. Worse, Fox demanded he return $11,400 in salary. He was broke. For 18 months, he couldn't get work. He became a mechanic in Van Nuys, fixing cars for people who had no idea he was once a rising star. Then fate stepped in. A Universal executive brought his car in for repairs and was impressed by Brolin's work ethic. He offered him a screen test. That test led to the role that changed Brolin's life. He became Dr. Stephen Kiley on Marcus Welby, MD. The show started in 1969 and ran until 1976. Brolin played a young, motorcycle-riding doctor working with an older partner. The show became a huge hit. In 1970, he won an Emmy, then 2 Golden Globes followed. By its 2nd season, the show was the most watched on ABC. It tackled serious medical issues like cancer, depression, and Alzheimer's. One episode about homosexuality caused protests, but Brolin stayed committed to meaningful storytelling. In 1972, he took on a darker role in Skyjacked. He played a disturbed Vietnam vet who hijacks a plane. He acted opposite Charlton Heston. The movie was tense and dramatic, and Brolin made the character feel real. Critics said he played the unhinged hijacker perfectly. Even though it was over the top, it showed he could go beyond the calm doctor image. Then came Westworld in 1973. He played John Blaine, a confident visitor in a theme park where robots looked and acted human. It was a science fiction hit that used early digital effects for the first time. Brolin's character is killed halfway through the movie in a shocking scene. That twist made the rest of the film even more intense. His performance gave the film depth and contrast. In 1979, Brolin took on horror. He played George Lutz in the Amityville Horror. He wasn't sure about the film at first, until he got spooked while reading the script. His pants fell off a chair by themselves. He took it as a sign. The film became a huge box office success, earning over $80 million. Brolin's performance as a man slowly unraveling was chilling. It reflected the fears of financial collapse and family pressure many people felt in the late 1970s. Behind the scenes, he and co-star Margot Kidder clashed, but the tension worked for the story. In 1985, Brolin showed his funny side with a cameo in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He played a fake version of Pee-wee as a suave secret agent. It was a clever nod to his almost role as James Bond. At the same time, he starred in the TV show Hotel. It ran for 5 years and gave Brolin a stable career. He played Peter McDermott, the polished manager of a fancy San Francisco hotel. Each episode had new drama, new guests, and Brolin at the center. He even directed some episodes. He got 2 Golden Globe nominations during that run. It also brought someone new into his life. His future wife, Jan Smithers, guest starred while he was going through a rough divorce. Meanwhile, Barbra Streisand was born in Brooklyn on April 24, 1942. Her parents were Diana, a school secretary, and Emmanuel, a respected teacher. He made $4,200 a year, which was barely enough to support the family in their small apartment. When Barbara was just 15 months old, her father died from a seizure. The family had only $250 in savings and had to move in with her grandparents. Barbara never got to know her father, but later found a note he had written in her baby book. "I have a feeling this one is going to be special." In 1949, her mother remarried, and Barbara gained a half-sister. But life didn't get easier. Her stepfather was cold and once told her he'd break her spirit. By 1958, at just 16 years old, Barbara left home. She had nowhere to go and no money. For a year and a half, she stayed wherever she could, friends' couches, old cots, and even fire escapes in summer. She had one suitcase held together with tape, and inside were 3 outfits, 2 pairs of shoes, and 12 records. Even then, she kept up perfect attendance at school. She studied in libraries and diners and worked part-time for 75 cents an hour. She only earned $17 a week, but made it last by visiting her mother twice a week just in time for dinner, so she could eat without admitting she was homeless. She wore the same coat for 3 years, fixing it herself, and even dyed a different color with leftover costume supplies. By 1960, Barbara was working as an usher at a theater, making just over $46 a week. She watched the same play, The Sound of Music, more than 100 times. She memorized every scene. Before work, she practiced singing alone in the theater. One night, a stage manager heard her sing. Thinking she was an understudy, he asked who she was. She boldly said she was auditioning, even though she wasn't. On the spot, she sang for 3 casting directors who just happened to be nearby. 2 days later, she was performing in a nightclub for $18 over the weekend, double her usual pay. But the theater fired her for breaking rules. It didn't matter. She had just taken her first real step into show business. Up to that point, she had never had a voice lesson. She learned by singing in stairwells and subways, testing echoes and drawing small crowds. Later that year, she was staying with a friend, Barry Denon, in a tiny, overheated apartment. He convinced her to record 3 songs. They used an old reel-to-reel recorder, and Barbara had to stand still and stay exactly 27 inches from the mic. When they played back the tape, Barry dropped his coffee mug in shock. He said her voice was like nothing he had ever heard. He played the tape for 14 people in the music business. Some didn't believe it was real. One record executive thought it had been professionally engineered and refused to believe it was a teenager with no training. But the truth came out, and that raw recording later made its way into the Library of Congress. Then came the night everything changed. It was September 19th, 60. Barbara, just 18, walked onto a nightclub stage in a $6 dress from a thrift shop. Her earrings didn't match. She had already been rejected from 7 auditions that month, often told she was too strange-looking. One producer even told her she had $1 million voice but a 5-cent face. But that night, she sang Cry Me a River and followed it with a funny take on Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. The crowd went silent. Then they clapped for nearly 5 minutes. She got perfect scores from the judges. The first time it had ever happened there. A harsh critic even wrote that her nose might become as iconic as her voice. Within 2 months, she had 23 paid gigs. She had proved that talent didn't need to fit the mold of beauty. In 1961, she made a bold move and changed her name, dropping the second A to become Barbara. She said it made her stand out. She kept her Brooklyn accent, refused surgery to change her looks, and kept singing the odd songs she liked. One freezing night, only 7 people came to her show. She didn't care. She performed as if the place was packed. She wouldn't change herself to fit in, and it worked. Then came Broadway. In 1962, she played Miss Marmelstein in a show called I Can Get It For You Wholesale. She had a 103 degrees fever the day before the big audition. Still, she showed up. The directors almost cut her big scene because it was too weird. But she fought for it. Opening night, the crowd made her sing it 3 times. She was just a supporting actor, but the reviews only talked about her. The newspaper called her the funniest thing on Broadway since Fanny Brice. She started out making $175 a week, but her contract was renegotiated 5 times. In 1963, Barbara released her first album. Columbia Records only printed 10,000 copies. They thought it would flop. It had no hit songs, just show tunes and ballads. But it sold 150,000 copies in 1 month. She had full control. She chose the songs. She even rejected a color cover and went with a simple black and white photo. It went against all marketing advice. That album won her a Grammy for Album of the Year. She beat Frank Sinatra. Some Grammy voters were so upset they quit. In her short speech, she said, "This isn't luck. This is what happens when you don't listen to people who don't understand your vision." A year later, she played Fanny Brice in Funny Girl. Brice's daughter didn't want her in the role. She said Barbara was too Brooklyn, too Jewish, and not pretty enough. Investors pulled out more than $1 million when they heard she got the part. But Barbara crushed it. She performed the role 867 times, missing only 2 shows. Even when she had pneumonia, she didn't stop. She sang songs written just for her because her voice had a 3.5 octave range. In one scene, a sprinkler broke and soaked her, but she kept singing. The director loved it and added it to the show. When the show moved to London, critics were harsh. But by the end, tickets were being sold on the black market for £150, an outrageous amount at the time. In 1965, she signed a TV deal with CBS. It was worth $5 million for 10 specials. She was only 23, but the contract gave her complete control. CBS couldn't change a thing without her approval. They couldn't interrupt her songs with commercials. Her first special, My Name is Barbara, broke every rule. She started the show singing Alone in the Dark. Executives were terrified, but 71% of people watching TV that night were tuned in. She won 5 Emmy Awards. She even edited the whole show herself. The director later admitted he just followed her instructions. In 1968, Barbra Streisand stepped off the Broadway stage and into movie history. She starred in Funny Girl, playing Fanny Brice, the same role that made her famous on stage. The film exploded in popularity and became the top-grossing movie of the year in the United States. Barbra's performance was so powerful, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. It was her very first movie. Even more shocking, she tied with Katharine Hepburn, the only tie in that Oscar category ever. The film earned 8 Oscar nominations and confirmed Barbara wasn't just a stage star. She was now a movie star, too. Years later, the Library of Congress preserved Funny Girl as a national treasure. But Barbara didn't just stick with musicals. In 1972, she took a big risk with What's Up, Doc? A wild comedy with Ryan O'Neal. At first, she hated the script and told reporters it would flop. But behind the scenes, major changes were made. Her character was rewritten to be more fun, while O'Neal played the serious one. It worked. The movie was a hit, becoming the 3rd biggest movie of the year. Barbara earned $500,000 for the role, more than her co-star, and critics praised her comedy skills. The film became a classic, ranking on top lists of American comedies. The following year, Barbara starred opposite Robert Redford in The Way We Were. It told the story of a passionate Jewish activist and a charming writer, set during a politically tense time in America. The budget was just $5 million, but the film made $50 million. It earned Barbara another Oscar nomination and won her a Top Italian Film Award. The title song, which she sang, became the biggest hit of 1974 and sold over 2 million copies. Decades later, it was added to the Grammy Hall of Fame. By now, Barbara wanted more control over her work. In 1972, she started her own production company, Barwood Films. Her first project was Up the Sandbox, a strange but bold film about a bored housewife escaping into fantasies. It wasn't a box office hit, but critics respected its brave take on feminism. Reviewers compared her screen presence to legends like Greta Garbo. Roger Ebert said she played a woman who didn't care what anyone thought, and that kind of character was rare in movies back then. Then came A Star is Born in 1976. Barbara didn't just act in it. She produced it, too. The film's love song, Evergreen, became a massive success. Barbara co-wrote the song and made history as the first woman to win an Oscar for composing music. The song also won a Grammy and a Golden Globe. Her performance earned her another Golden Globe, and Evergreen was later ranked as one of her best songs ever. That kind of success didn't come easy. Barbara fought hard for creative control, especially when she directed her first movie, Yentl, in 1983. It took her 15 years to get it made. Studios said no before one finally gave her a $14.5 million budget. She worked 20-hour days, disguised herself in tight bindings, and directed a mostly male crew of 168. Some even placed bets that she would fail, but she proved them all wrong. The movie made over $40 million. Still, one voter admitted he refused to vote for her just because she was a woman. At that time, only 0.5% of big studio movies were directed by women. When Yentl got great reviews in 1984, the Golden Globes refused to nominate Barbara in the main directing category. Instead, they made up a one-time award just for her, Best Director in a Musical or Comedy. The next year, that category disappeared. Barbara politely questioned it at the ceremony, asking why they didn't just include her with the rest. Her case became so well known that Congress later used it as proof of gender bias in Hollywood. Years passed, but Barbara didn't back down. In 1991, she returned to directing with The Prince of Tides. It took 26 drafts and 3 years to shape the script. She filmed in hurricane-damaged South Carolina, even hiring dozens of locals who had lost their homes. The movie made $63 million and earned 7 Oscar nominations. The Directors Guild finally honored her, the first woman ever nominated in their 44-year history. But the Oscars didn't give her a Best Director nomination. The outrage grew when people learned that 94% of Oscar voters for directors were men. In 1995, Barbara made more history. She directed her concert special for HBO and won the Directors Guild Award for television directing, the first woman to ever win in that category. The show had 11 cameras, 125 crew members, and 223 camera setups. All this while Barbara was battling crippling stage fright from a 1967 concert where she forgot lyrics. That fear had kept her off the stage for 27 years. The special brought in 26 million viewers and made $93 million. At the ceremony, Barbara pointed out that only 3.7% of TV directing jobs had gone to women. Her win came 25 years after she first fought the DGA on that exact issue. Behind the spotlight, Barbara's personal life was often painful. She married actor Elliot Gould in 1963. Their son Jason was born in 1966. Barbara canceled a $1 million tour when she found out she was pregnant. She loved being a mother and often brought Jason to work with her, but the marriage suffered. Gould struggled with gambling and drug use. He sold their things to fund his habits, and Barbara feared how that would affect their child. They separated in 1969 and divorced in 1971. James Brolin and Barbra Streisand met on a blind date on July 1st, 1996. It almost didn't happen. Both were in their mid-50s and had been through failed relationships. Streisand had been divorced since 1971. Brolin had just ended his second marriage and was $1.44 million in debt. Their friend Linda Bruckheimer set them up. After canceling twice before, Brolin was actually supposed to meet another woman that night, but changed his mind at the last minute. He took a Valium because he was nervous. Streisand expected a rugged guy with a beard, but found him clean-shaven for a different role. They ended up talking for 6 hours. They later realized they were born just 3.44 miles apart in Los Angeles. In the first 30 seconds, Streisand asked him, "Who messed up your hair?" She didn't mean anything bad, but it hit Brolin hard. His ex-wife had never commented on his looks in 11 years. That one remark stuck with him. He almost walked out, but something in her eyes made him stay. That night ended at 3:27 a.m. with her asking for a lock of his hair. She kept it. It's now framed in their home along with a handwritten note. Later, she admitted that just 17 minutes after meeting him, she felt he was different from the 28 blind dates she'd been on over the past 3 years. Brolin tried to propose 3 times. The first was 87 days after they met, in a hot air balloon over Napa Valley. He gave her a 3.9-carat diamond worth $250,000. She said no. She had a 2-year rule after a bad experience with a past fiancé. The second proposal came on New Year's Eve 1997 in New York. He played her favorite childhood song and knelt down in front of 14 friends. She said no again. The third time worked. It was March 15th, 1998, during a picnic at her Malibu home. This time, he gave her a 24-page letter with 98 reasons they belonged together. What he didn't know then, what she only revealed in her memoir years later, was that she had been secretly engaged to another man when they first met. She broke it off after their 5th date. They married exactly 2 years after their first date, on July 1st, 1998. The wedding cost $1.4 million. It was held at Streisand's Malibu home. Security was tight. There were 37 guards, a no-fly zone, and NDAs with $250,000 penalties. The ceremony began at 8:47 p.m., the exact time they first met. There were 15,000 white roses and orchids flown in from 4 countries. Guests included Tom Hanks, Oprah Winfrey, the Clintons, and Marlon Brando. Streisand wore a gown with a 27-foot train. Brolin wore an Armani suit with diamond cufflinks. She wrote a song for the ceremony called "I Finally Found You," performed by a children's choir from her foundation. At the reception, Brolin gave a speech at 11:43 p.m. It had 273 words. Streisand had it framed. He said, "Every night is a new adventure. Sleeping is a waste of time. I can't wait to see her again in the morning." He had battled insomnia for 27 years. She became his cure. They had spent 642 nights together before the wedding. They read poetry in bed, did crossword puzzles, and shared memories they never told anyone else. That night, Brolin also played a piano piece he had secretly learned called Barbara's Lullaby, misspelling her name as an inside joke. John Travolta later said Brolin had kept a journal of every day they'd spent together, which he planned to give her on their 25th anniversary. They reached that milestone in 2023. From the start of their marriage, they kept separate bank accounts. They called it bifurcation. It was Brolin's idea after losing $3 million in his second divorce. He said they even split dinner bills every Tuesday. Streisand was worth $400 million, and Brolin had $60 million. So this helped keep things equal. They shared just one account with $800,000 for the house. In a 2023 interview, Brolin said this setup saved them from money fights that ruined other Hollywood marriages. During the COVID-19 lockdown, their bond grew even stronger. While many couples split up, they fell in love all over again. They spent 425 nights in a row together. They woke up at 6:45 a.m., meditated, and made breakfast. They did 37 puzzles, one for each possible year of marriage. They watched The Crown and Bridgerton twice, and acted out scenes in costume. They even wrote a 278-page journal during lockdown that Brolin hinted could become a memoir. Their $35,000 Swedish mattress became their headquarters. They called it the boardroom. It had special support settings for both of them, spots for documents, and pillows that turn into laptop stands. They made big career decisions from that bed. Streisand even wrote songs for her 2018 album while lying there. They spent 4 to 6 hours a day on that mattress. Their bedroom was soundproofed at a cost of $175,000. Brolin said most of their best ideas came from that quiet space. When they fought, they took walks. It wasn't just random. They followed strict rules. No phones, deep breaths every 30 steps, and they walked in opposite directions around their 3.2-acre estate. After 17 minutes, they returned and wrote journal entries about how they felt. They used this method at least 217 times. Once, during a fight about Streisand's book in 2019, they took 7 walks over 3 days. Even on vacation, they asked hotel staff for separate walking paths. Brolin said walking helped their brains calm down and solve problems naturally. Streisand also stayed busy with her passion for women's heart health. She launched the Fight the Lady Killer campaign in 2014. She was shocked to learn heart disease kills more women than all cancers combined. She helped fund a heart center. At Cedars-Sinai and push for more awareness, she gave a major lecture at the National Institute of Health. In 2018, she spoke about how women often get worse heart treatment than men. Her campaign helped lower the number of deaths from 1 in 3 women to 1 in 4. She also spent 10 years writing her memoir, My Name is Barbara. It came out in 2023 and was 970 pages long. She wrote it all by hand. She had started thinking about it back in the 1990s. Even Jacqueline Kennedy once asked her to write it. Critics praised its honesty and style. Brolin joked that she probably wrote most of it in bed on their fancy mattress. As of 2025, Brolin is 83 and still working. He told People magazine, "I don't plan on stopping." He was filming Ransom Canyon and narrating the final season of Sweet Tooth. He joked that Streisand made fewer movies, but he made up for it with quantity: 97 films and 600 hours of TV. He said what excites him most is the next project. Ransom Canyon brought Brolin back to Westerns. He played a rancher named Cap Fuller, who dies in episode 9. He wished his character had stayed longer. The show was also Netflix's first major solar power production. It was filmed across 150 miles in New Mexico around the same time Brolin finished narrating all 3 seasons of Sweet Tooth. He talked about his long history with horses and said directing was still his favorite, but acting kept him energized.